So Pieter, how has the warehouse automation space changed from when you first started? Because you've been in the industry for a few years.
A few years, yeah. So I started in 1987 with a company that's now called Swisslog. They were Digitron and all kind of different names before they were Swisslog. And actually, I must say, I was thinking a bit about how things have changed. But if you take on the pallet side of business, so the automated pallet warehousing, until a few years ago, there was not much change. I mean, in the end of the 80s, you already had stacker cranes that were handling pallets with forks and racking and with conveyor systems around it. And until a few years ago, actually, that was still the most commonly used way of storing and automating your pallet warehouse. So I'll say that now in the last few years, you saw the rise of, for example, shuttle systems, four-way shuttle systems, but you still see stacker cranes as well. So in that space, actually, I mean, on details, things change, but the rough concepts were more or less still the same. If you then look at the area that handles more the light goods, so totes and cartons, I would say there is where the bigger change happened. So if you take almost 40 years ago now, it was mainly you had totes, mini load systems for mainly spare parts production sites and so, but not the big things that you now would see from TGW or Knapp in retail business, etc. That was not really existing so much. So that, I think, that was the first main development, that you saw huge systems with huge throughputs in shuttles and conveyor systems. And we get some neighbors that say,
yeah, it's all good. That's all good.
Yeah. And actually, then you see that that throughputs went up drastically. Automation level went up drastically as well. So, and that accelerated. So it started actually a bit with Witron type of company, and then you saw TGW, Knapp, Dematic, all of them coming with huge systems with high throughputs. So I think that has changed. That was not so much 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the last few years, of course, you see the rise of the flexible automation, the AMRs, let's say, the roaming shuttles, those kind of things. So that has really changed, and that you see as well. I mean, companies like Exotech and even, AutoStore was a bit longer there, but a lot of these companies are not there for a long time. No? And that made me think a bit as well when I was, I had 30 years or so with Swisslog, and then I worked at the Kerber supply chain. And in Kerber supply chain, there was not really a fitting position for me anymore. So I did 1 year for the US, and I made the agreement with Kerber, I would do it for 1 year. We find a successor, and I will look around what is best fitting to me. In that stage, I was in the board of an Indian company, a joint venture that Kerber had there. And I noticed that Addverb was coming, and they had new products and things I didn't know before. Halfway that year that I was in the US, I was approached by a Chinese company of AMRs as well. They wanted to set up the European office. So this made me think, hey, what do I want to do next? And then I thought, hey, actually the combination is quite nice. So I like actually the stuff that I've learned in my past with Swisslog and Kerber, which is a bit more the traditional way of automating, I would say. But I also like actually the newcomers, like the Chinese came with a lot of their products. And I knew Addverb as a competitor in India. So I thought, hey, that's actually a good combination to happen. And then I think I used LinkedIn, sent a note on LinkedIn through the CEO and the founder of Addverb. And that's when I joined and signed up for Addverb after finishing the Kerber time in the US. Yeah.
And how do you feel in terms of the software side of the automated warehouse? Is that remained kind of through like the early 2000s and the late 90s? Has that kind of remained a constant? Has that evolved in any way from what you've seen?
I mean, it evolved quite a bit. I mean, of course, it developed anyhow with new, let's say, IT technologies, etc. So, and that's where more traditional companies had sometimes a difficulty as well to keep up, because they had a huge installed base. So they had a sort of a WMS, and they could not easily port it to a new way of working. So that was for some of the traditional companies more complicated. In Addverb, it's only 9 years old. So and the architecture is probably 6-7 years old. But there you see the architecture has changed, the type of machinery has changed. And of course, what changed then is now as well that you have all these flexible automation, which also needs new type of software, fleet management system, all kind of different structures within software. So a lot of change there as well. And what is coming now, and we're only starting to see that, is the rise of AI, of course. So based on the machine level, but also in the software world, it's coming more and more.
Yeah, brilliant.
So more changes to happen even than what has changed, I think, in the past decades.
Yeah, excellent. And I saw as well, I'm really interested to kind of deep dive into, I guess, the technology stack that you guys have to offer. But I'm going to start kind of with maybe what's been publicly released on LinkedIn recently, maybe what's quite sexy on the market, which being Humanoids, and then the robo dog that you guys have, I think, that was launched in Logimats India last year, I believe.
Yeah.
I was actually just saying on my previous podcast with AutoStore, I want to sort of see humanoids with like wheels and not necessarily legs, because I think that's a big limitation. And when I was watching the interview on Bloomberg with Sanger from Addverb, he actually mentioned something similar, that we don't have to limit yourselves to a traditional human based platform. But just in general, I think I've got some notes here, 100 humanoids to be manufactured in 2025. And obviously the robo dogs are popular in hazardous environments like oil and gas or chemicals and things like that, from a security, scanning, and a number of different use cases. But do you mind touching on, I think, those two technologies that seem to be quite popular at the moment?
Yeah, and I don't think we know yet exactly what all the use cases in warehousing will be. And warehousing, knowing Addverb a bit now, so they do more than warehousing. So actually we were also in healthcare, in defense, in different things in India. So it was somehow a combination of things why we developed it. And I'll give you a bit of a background. So we already made for our AMR robots and the small robots, we make our own integrated circuit boards. So we make the boards themselves, and we cooperate with NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Intel. They're all fighting the space of robotics. And nobody's actually 100% sure who's going to win. So what we have started doing is we actually make our own boards, and we can plug in whatever processor GPU is coming from those guys. And they want to have us having pre-releases because they want to see how their CPUs are doing in the field. So that being said, so we make our own integrated circuit boards. Therefore we are on the edge of technology. That's one thing. We started making our own cobots. So the one arm things. So we initially bought from Universal, but then we said, hey, there's a market out there also in India, both in industry but also in healthcare. So think about doing from a long distance doing ultrasounds. So you have a doctor in Delhi and someone in a remote town in India, and doctor doesn't have to travel there, but you actually do a remote control of a cobot. For those cobots, we already needed to make integrated circuit boards as well.
Yeah.
Now think about two cobots with a camera. You already have the upper body of a humanoid. So a lot of technology drives integrated circuit boards, cameras, and then the first level of AI was already there. So there was also the opportunity to go into. And then we got some requests in India, specifically defense, but also our mother company, Reliance, let's say, to investigate more there. Also because, defense is obvious that certain things are a bit dangerous, but also in certain parts of industry, for example, Reliance of solar panel production. And often those environments are also not always safe for human. So they wanted to have actually a possibility to go there initially with with the RoboDogs, our tracker, which is for inspection purposes already okay. In the meantime, we also make one that can carry stuff. So the initial ones are mainly with cameras, so to detect certain things, and sniffers and those kind of things. Now you get, let's say, stuff that can also handle 50 kilogram payload, so you can also actually transport certain things in hazardous environments. But still, these RoboDogs have also certain limitations, so that's why we started looking into humanoids as well. Of course, we're not the only ones looking into, but from an Indian perspective, there are not so many. And even there are not so many engineers, so we are also trying to recruit. We'll, let's say, look in Europe as well for talents as well, to set up potentially a center in Europe as well, to have a mixture of, like we have an R&D center in Silicon Valley, actually with also very clever brains from school. So to have, let's say a combination of knowledge from different geographies, which not always is available in India. And that combination probably will happen. Then coming back to the warehouse industry, so that's exactly where Sangeet, my boss, said we will come up with a wheeled version. because most of the time there the territory is flat. So I mean, you have a nice floor, so you don't have to make it yourself too complicated because that's the most complicated part of the humanoid is the walking part, and then the whole balancing, etc. If you don't need it, you are stupid to put it in. So there will be always, let's say, a wheeled version. That's most likely the one that's going to be coming to Logimat next year, with the 2 arms and then the cameras and the AI. Yeah. The difficult part is not so much all the technology and the drives, etc. I mean, it's all complicated as well, but the main thing is actually the learning part. And so we had thousands of years. I mean, when my boss always gives the example, just think about you hand this from here to here. I mean, nobody thinks about it. It's so simple. Try to do that with a robot. I mean, it's
millions of different inputs.
Coordinate the two. You have to watch. You have to think. You have to make sure that these two things these motions are somehow coming together. It's not easy. So there is also not enough data available. So you can buy data from Meta, for example, or from other companies. But there's actually there's a lot of data on people that use them on social media, but actually data with movements in it, there's not so much. So that is actually what has to grow. That's why these humanoids will actually get better and better over time, but you need to have a lot of use cases for it. So for example, we are now sending a lot of our cobots into universities and engineering institutes in India against a cost price. For the students can then work with it. And of course, we get data for how they use it. And that helps us actually on the AI side of things.
Yeah. Excellent.
So there's a lot of development in that area.
Yeah. Oh, good. And you touched on there recruiting people that are ex-Google and strengthening the team from an AI standpoint. But I'm interested to know from your experience in the industry, growing a team organically, because I guess depending on the setup and the layout of the business, but if you've got investors or if you're private equity backed, there's a lot of pressure to grow and hit certain targets, of course. But then from an operating business point of view, you want to do that organically. You don't want to rush or make the wrong decision, etc. So from your experience, I guess setting up project management, execution, reliability, maintenance strategies, and sales strategies as well. What would you say are the key points to sort of growing a successful team?
I mean, actually, there's a difference between the growth in India and outside India. So let me first start India. So in India, we have a team, a rather senior team, not so big, but a senior team with a lot of experience. And what we do there is we recruit a lot of people from school. So we follow them in the last 2 years of university. Typically, we take engineering institutes and universities in India. But I would say the top 1% probably goes to the Googles and the guys that immediately make a fortune. But just the level below, let's say that is where we are recruiting. So the top talents, I would say, we already spot them a year or so before they graduate. And then we follow them in the final year and graduate, sometimes have an internship in between. And then we recruit, 40, 50 people in one go. And then we try to grow them. And then that's why you see, and there's a lot, and every year that's renewed. So the average age in a company, including international, is 27 years old. So just to understand a bit.
Yeah.
So you have some seniors. I always jokingly said that includes me. So I increase the average a bit. But there's a lot of youngsters. So if you go to India, you get also energized, I would say, because it's a lot of young people and they're all extremely bright. Of course, they have no experience. So, but the good thing is you can also then groom them in a certain way. So you can really educate them. Sometimes they do a few months here, a few months there, and you say, hey, they're actually better in this area or that area, and then they grow. And then, of course, they can also grow with the company growing. Some of them will then go abroad, doing a major or let's say a master in the US or whatever. So because most of them are very ambitious because they were the top talents. And the other ones will stay. And that's fine as well. We cannot keep all of them. So that's actually how we grow the Indian organization with a lot of new talents. If you then, and every now and then we have to replace a senior one as well. If you look abroad, it's a bit of a mix. So if you look to my unit, for example, so we started immediately hiring a few people with experience. So I was the first one, but then also my head of projects, Bernard van Doorn, he's ex van der Lande of 25 years, did all the Amazon accounts, etc. So a lot of experience. The same, we have a system integration manager, similar thing. And then we added a few salespeople as well, which were also, let's say, coming from Knapp and other industries. So having a certain base of experience in-house Then we added immediately 1 or 2 from India. So actually to make the link to the headquarters as well, and then have the knowledge of the products. So they do solution design, drawings, etc. And now you see actually that we are hiring a mix. So yes, we need to set up UK. So I hired 2 very experienced people in the UK. At the same time, we have to, let's say, have some more engineering capacity. Then I take actually some people with 3, 4, 5 years experience in India. So very young still, but already very experienced for Indian perspective. And then they get a chance, let's say, to grow into organizations like in the US or in Europe. We try to get a bit of a mix of both. And then, of course, if you then have growing country organizations, we do the same. So in Saudi or let's say in UAE, we hired a very experienced guy, and we are now recruiting around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant.
But always a mix local and Indian people, giving them a chance from our headquarters to join us locally.
Yeah. And that's good because you're keeping your natural company culture as well that stemmed from the headquarters and mix that with the international culture, and then you've got a nice hybrid. Okay. Yeah. And on the subject of your role and having the EMEA focus, what difficult question, I guess, but what locations or geographic areas are you seeing in the market in general that are quite busy? Is there a particular country, particular region or sub-region that you're getting a lot of traction from?
So when we started, let's say 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, we made a sort of a strategy document. You do some studies and whatnot. So the intention was always the northern part of Europe going direct. It looks to be, let's say, the biggest markets within Europe. South and east, probably indirect through partners. Not big enough, at least, for us to start with an own setup. And we always had the intention in the Middle East to be, say, in the Gulf countries, to go direct as well, because that was one of the upcoming and bigger markets at the same time. So that's what we followed now as well. Hence, now we're recruiting in UK. You see, what I see now at the moment happening, okay, we can still grow in those Northern European countries because we are still small compared to one of the big players. At the same time, we had a lot of requests from Eastern Europe, Poland specifically, more on the e-com side, but also lately Bosnia, Serbia, so the more southern eastern part, which is more manufacturing related, so more on the pallet business side. So that was quite new for us actually seeing that happening. At the same time, Middle East is growing like I expected, a bit slower than initially planned. But now you see actually a lot of traction happen there as well. And Saudi, I would say, a bit of a mix, but a lot of manufacturing. Where in Emirates, it's more e-com. So that's where you see actually the big players like Amazon, Noon, these kind of e-com players coming up as well, fashion as well.
Yeah.
They're all based more or less out of Emirates.
Interesting. It's interesting when you mentioned like a Serbia or a Bosnia. I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but just thinking out loud, typically one of the main selling points to automation where your sales would come in is obviously in a high labour cost country like a Germany, a Netherlands, a UK, for example, which is where automation, I guess, stems from, amongst other things. But typically I'd say, and I think that's now why automation is so popular in like a Poland or a Czech Republic, because naturally the cost of employment is rising. But I'd maybe say Serbia and Bosnia, from my understanding, I don't live there, is the cost of labour is quite low. So it's interesting just to see that's where the market's...
Yeah, actually, I mean, there's funny things in different geographies, why people automate. I give you a good example, because in India, I mean, salaries are lower than Eastern Europe. So the average salary of an basically installer or mechanical guy that has not much of an education, so one that does installation works, for example, is around €200 a month.
Okay.
So it's low. That's why a lot of people have a personal driver as well, because, the traffic is quite bad, but at the same time, it's not expensive. And actually, sometimes you sponsor another human being around you, although it's not for much. But clearly, the ROI is then not labor cost. What is in India, for example, very important is real estate cost goes up around the main cities, almost as expensive as in Europe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you can reduce, let's say, the footprint, etc., that's a good driver. And volumes go up. So we do a project or we have done a project for Flipkart, which is, let's say, the Amazon of India. Yeah. In that system, they do 1 million orders a day.
Wow.
Okay. There's no way you can, with people, you cannot handle it anymore, basically. You can truck in a lot of people, but it will not help. So in a lot of more, let's say, more low-cost countries, real estate and pure volume or quality are key reasons. And in Saudi, it's also labor cost is also quite low. It's also building driven. So for one of the customers we have there, they said, okay, we want to increase production. It eats into the warehousing space. We cannot afford building new buildings, so fill up the existing buildings how we can, and it can only be done automatically. So that's a good reason as well. And lately I had an interesting discussion with an African customer, because also their first looks are, and their labor costs are much lower. Actually, the ROI was theft.
Yeah.
So actually, because the labor cost is so low, I mean, it is, I mean, for a lot of people, actually taking one of the articles of the warehouse actually is a month's salary. So you see, therefore, different reasons. But actually, building and volumes are key everywhere, I would say. Labor cost, not all.
Yeah. Nice. And talk me, so we touched on earlier, the tracker, the robo dog, sorry, and then the humanoid that you guys have got. Talk me through, I guess, not all of your portfolio, but maybe what you're seeing a lot of traction in the market from particular customers. I know you've got your stacker cranes, you're doing quite a lot in the cold storage industry, and obviously you've got your AMRs you mentioned as well. But talk us through the rest of the portfolio.
Yeah, so if I look through my prospect list, I would say the main traction point at the moment is, okay, we do software quite a bit, also standalone software. As you may know, we do software for Cardex on top of the AutoStore. So we have more than 20 people only doing software, let's say, in Europe for AutoStore. So that's one key area, which is key not just because of software alone, but it's also indicates the possibility we can do total solutions because we have the software to control it. Then, as I say, from an product portfolio, hardware point of view, I think the two main runners would be on one side, in the e-com side, the sortation robots. I mean, the number of competitors is also limited. I mean, you have the yellow ones from China, basically, and then there's already not much left. And then, so that's where you see traction. And often also in countries where labor costs are not so high. So what they do often is they don't automate the full storage. So they don't go for an AutoStore or shuttle system yet. They still keep the traditional way of picking, but they do batch pick and then do a sort at the end. So they get a huge increase of efficiency in the pick area without a too heavy investment, because you only do the sortation bit. But that's an area. The other area is more on the FMCG manufacturing area, which is the four-way pallet shuttle. I mean, I once wrote an article as well where I predicted that in the past I was doing stacker cranes myself. I would even do programming of the stacker crane myself, but that was dominant at that stage. Then you had the multi-shuttle coming up, so the mother-child shuttles. I would predict 60% on the market in future will be four-way pallet shuttle. And then you see coming now as well. Okay, there is a lot of suppliers as well, but it's not just the shuttle. You need to have the software, and you need that. So it's a solutioning part. We see a lot of, let's say, I would say half my prospect list is probably on the four-way pallet shuttle area, combined with picking potentially, etc. And then there are, let's say, we do integrated systems as well, both on pallet as well as tote handling or carton systems as well. So a mix of things, but I would say if you have the three biggest one, it's software, sortation, and four-way pallet shuttle.
Yeah. And on the subject of, I could be wrong, but from what I see in the industry, the four-way pallet shuttles and the capability from yourselves and others in the market, where it can work in minus temperatures in cold storage environments, I think that's a real game changer, because one of the main reasons or use cases, I guess, for automation in frozen environments is people don't necessarily want to work in minus 25 degrees and moving frozen products around the warehouse. So how are you finding the FMCG food market, but then the frozen market as well?
A frozen market was always already very interesting for automation, because you actually, the energy use is also going per cube. So the more dense you can make it, the better it is. So that's why initially, I say, when stacker cranes already were there as well with satellites, etc. So you could already go quite dense. So they are there since a long time already. But this four-way is going into that field as well. And specifically, if you have brown fields as well, where they have now manual rack. So often a stacker crane does not always fit. It's when there's one aisle. Now you want to have, okay, we want to use the corner above the shipment area. We also put some racking there, etc. That's with four-way. I mean, you can always reach and find a path how to reach. So I think that, there you see quite some requests at the moment, chilled and frozen, actually doing with four-way as well.
Excellent. Okay. And from moving slightly on, I'm interested to see, especially yourself, being a leader and executive representing an Indian-based company in EMEA, I guess it's representative of a number of different organizations as well. But when you have a HQ that's maybe outside of Europe or outside of EMEA, and you're going to market in a certain country, talk me through, I think what's really important for customers is the after service, right? So obviously the product being reliable, but then the infrastructure, the maintenance support or the hotline support, however you call it. How do you structure that in terms of having maybe field service engineers or a 24/7 support contract? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, of course, I have these questions regularly. So the main thing is that we have a very strong team in India that does 24/7. Of course, though, India is English speaking, so that helps already. But we have really a big number of people that are sitting behind the desk 24/7. So it's not just also on call, etc. They're physically there. We've taken over a whole team, let's say, acqui-hired a whole team that was actually servicing US, Australia, different parts of the world. And they are based out of Pune, around 40 people or so. They only basically mainly do support. So we do 24/7 hotline. We do, let's say, controls as well. So software controls and answering questions on, hey, the stuff isn't moving, what do we do? It's all handled, let's say, through our headquarters. And we do that, for example, for the Cardex AutoStore systems as well. So basically also customers in Germany now are connected to our hotline.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, the hotline and the people behind it. The other thing is the computerized maintenance management system. So we have a central Siemens-based system where all, let's say, our customers are hooked through. So actually you can order spare parts, etc., directly into our system. So you can get the BOM of your AMR or shuttle. You can point to the stuff you want to have, and then you can order spare parts. So also that is central. If you want to do preventive maintenance, those schedules are all in the system as well. So if you do it yourself as a customer, you see that as well. So what is actually left? And then we have, of course, specialists in Holland, but they are not, let's say, they cannot be within a few hours in Poland. So the things that is left actually is what do you do if you want to have solve something within a few hours on a local entity somewhere in Europe. There actually the difference depends on what kind of customer it is. So if you do customers that are in production environment, most of the time they have a huge maintenance team. So actually we train those guys, they do the first level.
Yeah.
And they don't need us actually to be on site. Other parts where you have a 3PL or an e-com business, they normally do not have, let's say, that kind of facility. What we then normally do is either we have people that are already there, or we have, let's say, a local company that does the installation for us. They get trained as well, and they do the call out for us. And then they can, of course, always get the backup from our office.
Next 5 to 10 years in automation, what do you predict? What do you want to see? What do you think the market will bring us?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not so easy to predict, but the first thing I can predict that automation, I think, will be getting more and more important. Why do I say that? Specifically in the developed countries, the demographics are not helping us. So everybody gets older and the number of people doing the work is getting less. At the same time, you see a sentiment or anti-migration. So most people are not too keen on having foreigners coming in, and they actually do not make a lot of difference what kind of foreigners are. So also meaning people that currently do a lot of work in the warehouses specifically as well. So I think there will be more and more pressure to automate specifically warehouse automation as well. So the warehouse part as well. So I would say generally, I think for all of us, there's a good space out there in the warehouse automation space. If you don't see where the main development will happen, I think you see already in the last few years that's a more and more move to more flexible types of automation, whether it's even the main dominant players are going there as well, sometimes supported by their Chinese headquarter or Chinese sister companies, etc. as well. But I think that will continue because we are getting less and less good in predicting. If you are a production company with a production line, okay, you anyhow are pretty stable, but on the e-com side, the retail side is getting more complex. So I think the flexibility remains key as well. So there will that move will continue. So we will see more flexible solutions versus, let's say, the fixed ones, which are already happening now. And then I think nobody is actually exactly knowing what is happening on the AI side, where that is, you see the first glimpse. You are also doing, let's say, some on the software side, first implementations of AI, so predicting how your operation will going to be, support customers in their procurement of materials based on the forecast of their output. But I think we've only seen a snip of it yet. And the same is that, so that's the AI on the software side, but the AI on the machinery side is also only starting actually. And a lot of things are really, I mean, take item picking, automated item picking. Is there already for 5 years or so? I mean, none of them are making money. Yeah? So they're all, let's say, still exploring because speed is not good enough. They cannot handle 100% of but things will develop and they will get better. We don't know yet where the switch point exactly is. But I think there, specifically on the AI side, I think is where, let's say, the big breakthroughs will happen. But nobody knows exactly when and how exactly. I mean, even with the humanoid, we don't even know yet what exactly will happen. I mean, everybody can imagine something that's very repetitive. Let's put a robot in. But actually, the real repetitive task that is going to do that for a few years, you can also do a simple robot. You don't need a humanoid for that. Huh? So it's more about some flexibility. One, they do something, and another they do something else. That's, of course, where a humanoid could play a role because they can actually start understanding based on what they see and learn something quickly. So, but I think we still don't know yet. I mean, everybody sees the nice pictures of humanoid folding clothing or whatever, but nobody knows yet exactly where the breakthrough will happen. But that there will be a breakthrough, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sustainability, how is that a topic that your customers are bringing to you a lot? Is there any changes in the last 5 to 10 years or any changing in trends sort of coming in the next 5 to 10 years? Just in general, interested to see.
I think it is
the approach.
To be honest, I think it was more dominant almost 5 years ago in the conversations than it is today. Although, I mean, most of the bigger companies actually, they demand that you have a certain, let's say, so we invest in that as well. I mean, if you go to our latest facility, you will see that, of course, our roof is full of solar panels that we are, let's say, can take our own power. We are also, let's say, consuming all the water that comes to our facility. We actually collect it and we reuse it. We have a water facility as well. We have a huge pond so that doesn't immediately drain away, so we can reuse them from the pond. We have microforests, etc., for CO2 reduction. So there's a lot of things happening, even in India, I'd say, in our facilities as well. And of course, if you are dealing with companies like DHL, they also monitor what you are doing. So that's not new, but I think it has been, energy consumption is more of a drive, yes. So that is coming more and more, I guess. But what kind of batteries do you use and how much energy do they consume or your other systems consume? But I have the impression it was more dominant perhaps 5 years ago than it is today.
Interesting. Okay. Final question from me. If you can, outside of the world of warehousing, doesn't matter if it is inside, but piece of technology you're not necessarily most excited for, but piece of technology that takes your interest.
To be honest, I'm not a technology freak. I mean, I'm an engineer, and I was doing programming of all kind of equipment, etc. But actually, from a warehousing perspective, I'm more of a solution designer. So I like new designs. I still try to sit with customers and say, "Hey, how's your data looking like?" etc. But if you look now at technology, I've recently bought a new house. Or actually, it's an old house which you have to refurbish a lot. So I'm more and more, let's say, interested in, hey, how can we make that as energy efficient as possible? Which means actually, okay, there's a lot of new technologies now on, let's say, heating. I mean, just a heat pump, but also drilling then into the soil, so going 150 meter deep, and then reuse the energy from the soil, which reduces your things as well. And my son is excited about automation, so together we look at, hey, what can we automate all in the house, etc. as well. So that's actually interesting now to read a bit outside your warehouse automation space to look, hey, there's a lot of things happening. I mean, batteries, can I use an electric car to reach, let's say, also as a battery for the house, which is not common yet, probably will come as well. So to be more, let's say, energy efficient and also, let's say, a bit more independent from gas and electricity suppliers. So doing more yourself.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I guess, to be honest, it's not something I've ever thought about, to be honest, but I guess especially being in the Netherlands and myself being in the UK, rain is quite a lot. So a traditional solar panel for energy efficiency probably isn't the best route. So different ideas like that are really cool. But
That solar panels I will use as well.
Of course, yeah, but just different,
Yeah.
I guess, extensions from that in terms of energy efficiency is really cool. And sounds like you're on top of things with your refurbishment. And maybe we'll see humanoids in your house. I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah, exactly. We do the cooking, etc.
Yeah, exactly. But Pieter, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks so much for your time. And we'll catch up very soon.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.